Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel to Only Movies, and today we are going to be talking about Spider-Man Brand New Day. My god, everyone was going so crazy for this Spider-Man movie. The hype and everything, it's been months, talking about years, with the Tom Holland's coming back and all the clips where you get to see little behind the scenes and stuff, and everyone's excited because we haven't seen Spider-Man since like what, 4 years ago or 5 years, and everyone's really excited to wonder what's gonna happen for the next Spider-Man movie. And what can I say about this one? I'm really mixed about this Spider-Man movie. Um, so let me give you my thoughts, and I'm gonna give you my review at the end, and then we're gonna talk about a little bit of spoilers as well. So if you haven't seen this movie, I recommend you just don't watch the ending part. But I'm gonna start by giving my positive and negative. So by starting with my positive, of course, the visual effects for Spider-Man was amazing. Of course, Tom Holland's playing as Spider-Man is always amazing to see him as Spider-Man. Of course, he's not my top favorite Spider-Man. Of course, Tobey Maguire is always gonna be my favorite Spider-Man. But I say Tom Holland did a really amazing job playing Spider-Man, especially for the MCU version of Spider-Man. Uh, like I said, he does a really amazing job playing as Peter Parker as well, and with Spider-Man. So of course, he's always gonna be amazing for this one. And I always love to see him, what he's gonna do next on his next film and all. And of course, I can't wait to see him on the next Avenger film until, of course, Secret Wars. Since we don't think he's gonna show up in Doomsday because he hasn't been announced or anything. But yeah, like I said, for this director, Daniel Craig, he did a really amazing job bringing Spider-Man to this street level and stuff. Of course, like changing up with the practical effects and stuff, and instead of using his suit as CGI, is mainly practical effect, using actual the suit and all. So which that was really amazing. It's great to see that instead of using so much CGI. Of course, there's plenty of CGI in this film, of course, with the swinging and all that, but they tried their best not to use so much CGI when he's doing the swing. But there's a few scenes you could notice. Like I said, the visual effects was pretty amazing. It's really great to see and all. Of course, the cast were great. Of course, like with the Zendaya and them, and his friend Ned and all. Of course, Zendaya and Tom have great communication, great connection and stuff. Because of course, everyone knows they're dating. I believe they're married already, so that's why they have great connection, especially with this couple dynamic duo and all. And then of course, with everyone know Frank Castle is there. It was good to see Frank Castle and Spider-Man, because I did enjoy doing like the Punisher versus Spider-Man, like from the animation film. That's what I love about that. Of course, finally, it was great to see Rage Hulk. I know everyone's been begging for Rage Hulk to be back, because it was really disappointing from what happened in Infinity War. He lost to Thanos, and then after that, they never used Hulk again until like Endgame. They did Smart Hulk, which not many people like the Smart Hulk so much. I just wish they used him for just few scenes and stuff in Endgame. Then they could brought Rage Hulk, but they didn't. So like everyone's just really disappointed that they did not use Rage Hulk. But the director was a big fan of the Hulk, so he finally brought the Rage Hulk, which was really amazing. I felt like he was even more swollen and bulkier compared from his last time we seen him and stuff. But it was great to see him, and of course, everyone knew Jean Grey was going to be Sadie Sink. I think she did a really amazing job as playing as Jean Grey. Of course, there's no surprise that she's going to be in the X-Men film in the future for the MCU and all. But can't wait to see what more can she do and all. And of course, like it was really enjoyed seeing Scorpion, even though he wasn't there so long and all. But it was great to see them as a few other side characters and stuff for the film and all. And then I did like in this film that they did how they did Spider-Man being alone, how he's depressed, he doesn't have his friends, he doesn't have no family and all, which I did like. That's how Spider-Man is supposed to be. Of course, they did that with Toby and Andrew, and I did like how they did this one. Like, okay, he's going to college, he's alone in his apartment. Yeah, he misses his friend, he misses his aunt. He doesn't have his aunt anymore because sadly she passed away, and his friends forgot about him. So he's just really depressed and sad because it's been 4 years after they erased everyone's mind forgot who was Peter Parker. So it's just he's going through that struggle, which I really like. It's like Spider-Man has to go through that struggle to improve himself in later in the future to become a better Spider-Man, better hero, a better person, to understand his like it's Peter and Spider-Man, not just Peter and just Spider-Man, two separate persons. No, it's just one. So that's what I like about what they did here in the MCU film for the Spider-Man. But like I said, that was mainly my positive. There's not so much of it to say because I'm mix of this film. So I'm gonna give you my negative. What I didn't like about this film. First off, what I didn't really like about this film is like, okay, we get to see Yelena again. I feel like we see this Black Widow character so many times. We've seen her, of course, from the New Avengers Thunderbolts. Of course, she's been like in the last Black Widow film. I feel like they bring her up so much, like she's a leader or something for this New Avenger, or she's like the Nick Fury for the future of this MCU, which I didn't like. Of course, she talked with Spider-Man, and she's like small potatoes and stuff, trying to reference things like what he does is not a big threat compared to like what he really did. He faced it off Thanos, of course. He's faced it off like the bigger stuff, the big threats. Yeah, he in his films he hasn't faced out like big threats, but like I said, just Thanos and all. But what she's trying to say is like she's faced out more threats and all, but she really hasn't faced anything dangerous like what he faced out with Thanos and all. Of course, the original Black Widow, she did face off Thanos, but she didn't. That's one of the scene I didn't like. Of course, I know people are gonna hate this, but I'm gonna say that, in my opinion, I felt like in Spider-Man, he had no villain. I know people are saying Jean Grey was the villain, but for me, Jean Grey as Spider-Man villain wasn't really Spider-Man's villain. I was so disappointed that all the hype and stuff that we were seeing, the clips and stuff, which I avoid trying to see any second trailer, any small clips, TV commercials, whatever that they show. I was hoping Scorpion was going to be the villain for his film. I was so excited to hear that they're bringing back Scorpion, but they really did not use Scorpion. They try to make it seem Jim Carrey was the villain, but which in reality for me, there didn't seem there was a villain. Jean Grey, of course, she's a hero, a good guy. Of course, everyone knows she becomes the Dark Phoenix, then she becomes a bit of a villain, but she faces off the X-Men, not Spider-Man. Spider-Man, for me, I felt like this was forced. Of course, they're trying to bring in like the next X-Men. It's been years, like everyone's been talking, where's been the mutants, since the only mutants they showed was, of course, Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, and we haven't seen any other mutants until now. I felt like I said, I felt it's being forced so they could bring in their future reboot of the X-Men. Of course, we're gonna see the original X-Men from the Fox universe in Doomsday, but like I said, for them to bring Jean Grey, I feel like was just a waste of potential. Especially like, yeah, in the comics she does have a sister, but I thought it was so stupid saying that her sister sent her a message saying that find her from VMAX. I thought VMAX was something like a big threat, like probably like people who are working on the Sentinels or something like that, or like the damage control, like they're part of like some company and all. But no, it's just her looking up at the vent and stuff. That was like saying that was her message trying to send to her sister, which I thought was so stupid. Of course, like I said, it was great seeing John Berthel as the Punisher, but I was just really disappointed on the way they did Punisher. He wasn't like the Punisher how we seen from the Daredevil show and his own show. For me, he seemed like bit goofy and all. Yeah, like he's trying to partner up with Spider, but he doesn't seem like that tough badass like he was from before. He seemed a bit more silly here, and like, if you've seen the ending scene, like it was a bit goofy for me, and it's like he seemed more emotional compared from the other. Yeah, like in his show he was emotional, but you understand why, because his family, what he's been going through his family and all this stuff. But for this one, it's just really not a good way to represent the Punisher in the Spider-Man. The other thing, like, yeah, I did mention that I did enjoy seeing the Hulk as the Rage Hulk, but I felt like it was just, we only get to see him 20-30 seconds, which I didn't like that. I was hoping we could get to see him more, but hopefully we get to see him more later on, like in Avengers Secret Wars, or maybe well, I don't think Doomsday, but well, because they already have so much characters and stuff. Um, but like I said, it was just there was no point bringing the Hulk. There was no point of bringing Jean Grey, the Punisher. I was really disappointed that the characters they were saying for Spider-Man villains were just they were just brainwashed. They were just confused, and I was like, what a waste of potential. And like I always tell like people, especially one of my friends, like for the last Spider-Man film, what they shouldn't have done is Craven the Hunter. I do understand they're trying to build up the multiverse. That's why they brought the other Spider-Man and then try to build up like the Sinister, because really that's the only time we're ever gonna get it to see a Sinister. Because I know they try to do that for the Amazing Spider-Man with Andrew Garfield, and they were gonna make a film, but that was all canceled and everything. Of course, Tobey Maguire's his villains for the to build up Sinister were already killed for Green Goblin. Doc was already killed, so they can't build up Sinister Six, and sadly they stopped doing films for Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, which I wish they couldn't continue it. And then the last thing is I just was disappointed the way that the most of the time that they were saying that Spider-Man's mutation that he's I know everyone's saying that he wasn't gonna turn into Man Spider, so I was just disappointed. But there's like try to build up for this. It seems like it was gonna be something else. It might be a symbiote, or it might be him doing mutation, which I was just disappointed. It was just a waste. There was no use of it. It was like, yeah, they probably could build it up for the next film, and maybe he could turn to Man Spider, but who knows? I just feel like they're not gonna really do it. Then I might get him into Man Spider, since he made like a little chip to control his hormones for that mutation and all. But if they ever would have done a Man Spider, I would say it would have been better with Tobey Maguire, since Sam Raimi directed and he's a big horror director from Evil Dead. So for him to do his horror element to do that in Man Spider with Tobey Maguire would have been badass. But I was just disappointed in this. And for my opinion, this was Tom Holland's worst Spider-Man. I know people are giving great reviews and stuff. They're saying this is the best Spider-Man. This is the number one Spider-Man. But in reality, they did not do the street level that like they were always talking about. Like they did say they were doing street level, but the only time you see street level villains is, like I said at the beginning of the film, just like 30, maybe less than 30 minutes. I was just disappointed because in Tombstone we didn't see him so much. I was just hoping they couldn't just, instead of using Jean Grey as the villain, they couldn't done is Kingpin. Let him come at by the end. Build up little by little, not to make him like all build up like how they did Thanos year by year and the film to film and all, make him to 10 years. No, like build him up, use Tombstone and Scorpion as the main two villains. Scorpion, the main one, and Tombstone, like he's working for someone, but he's not gonna mention until the end when Spider-Man stops him. And then the other side characters are just like little higher ones, but they're so weak. And then they hired bigger ones like Scorpion, and then Tombstone. Because like, yeah, in the comic book, James Jonas hired Scorpion to stop Spider-Man. But instead of James Jonas to hire him is the Kingpin. And he doesn't come out by the end of the film. And then by the next film, he could be the main villain. Like I said, I just wish for No Way Home, they couldn't use, instead of the villains of Sinister Six from the original films of Spider-Man, they could use Craven the Hunter instead. Build up Sinister Six little by little, because you did Vultures from the first film, then Mysterio, and then the third one you could have done, of course, Craven the Hunter, and then by this fourth one, Scorpion. And then the next film, you have Kingpin. He hires another one. It could be, let's say, probably Doc Ock, or yeah, probably Doc Ock. And then the final sixth one, it could be Hobgoblin. Since I already used Green Goblin, use Hobgoblin. And then there you go. There's your Sinister Six by the sixth film. And Kingpin has them, just like in the animated film, because I know they didn't do it like in the comic, it was different. But I say like the original 1990s Spider-Man, how they build it up, how Kingpin hires them. But sadly, they didn't do. Of course, the last film was the multiverse, and they didn't use no Craven Hunter. And this, sadly, Scorpion was just a waste of potential because he's been built up, and everyone's wondering when he's gonna come back. Because at the end of Homecoming, Scorpion says like he has friends that he wants to stop Spider-Man, and I felt like that could have been a great idea. Say it's like, hey, he's been hired by Kingpin, he's working with Tombstone, and then Kingpin's gonna hire all these other villains who were like I said, Vulture, Mysterio, Scorpion, and all these other ones to build up the Sinister Six by the sixth film. But Marvel is not doing any of that. They're just wasting potential, wasting doing something else. For me, like I felt like this wasn't really Spider-Man. This was a Spider-Man film. It's like, yeah, everyone says like, yeah, he went through his struggles. Like, yeah, he did went through his struggles. That was good. Just like they did with the other two Spider-Mans, with Andrew and Tobey. He was depressed. He was lonely, and that was great. That was a great thing. But like I said, in this one, they just wasted all that potential just for him to be like, there's no Spider-Man villain for him. It was just for build up for the X-Men, future X-Men. People are saying, yeah, it was built up for the Avengers Doomsday, but I didn't feel like that. I felt like it was more like a build up for the X-Men film.
And of course, they announced another cast for the X-Men. It's gonna be Emma Frost, who's gonna be played by Samara Weaving. She looks like a good cast to play as Emma Frost. I can't judge about that. But also, like, they already announced Adam Driver as Magneto, so we're just gonna have to wait and see if this is actually for real. Probably by next year they're gonna announce it more, mainly at San Diego Comic Con. But like I said, we're just gonna have to wait and see. We still have a long time for that until the actual movie of
later.
X-Men.
We all know once they reboot the Spider-Man, I feel like they're still not gonna mention about Uncle Ben. There's no Uncle Ben here in this film. They seem like he's gonna be erased for this one, since we've seen him so many times as from the last two Spider-Man. But still, we need Uncle Ben, because like, how is he gonna be with him giving a good speech about like, with great powers give you responsibility and all that. And sadly, this one didn't. They used for Aunt May for that from the last film, which I was just disappointed. And of course, I know few people I've seen that mentioned that what Marvel's been doing, adding female villains. I know people are gonna hate that I'm saying that, but I do have noticed that because Doctor Strange, they had Scarlet Witch as female villain. Deadpool and Wolverine had a female villain, and now Spider-Man has one, which is not even Spider-Man's villain. Most of them had big powers, like the last two, like Deadpool and Wolverine, and Jean Grey. They have man, I forgot how to say it. Well, mind reading powers and stuff like that. And Scarlet Witch, she has, of course, her witch powers and all, which I do understand. Like, yeah, seem to be the same villains with same powers and same threats and all. Nothing like big, different, major and all. But like I said, I just wish it was just Scorpion as the villain for this. So yeah, that was my thoughts on it, in my opinion. I know people are gonna hate this. I know once I'm gonna give you my rating for this film. Sadly, like I said, this was the worst Spider-Man for Tom Holland, so I'm gonna have to give it a 5 out of 10. Like I said, because I was a bit mixed. It's like, yeah, it was good visual effects. I did love Tom Holland's performance and all that. But like I said, I just did not like it. There's no Spider-Man villain. There's just built up for the X-Men film. Jean Grey was we really didn't need to use Jean Grey. Punisher, they could have used him, but in the future film when Spider-Man turns to Man-Spider, but like I said, they're not going to do that. So I feel like he was a waste to put in. Hulk 2 was a waste, and I was just disappointed that Scorpion wasn't the villain, like the main villain through the film. It was just a few minutes and all. So like I said, that was my opinion. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think. Did you like the Spider-Man film? Did you not like it? What you think of it through this? Are you excited for the future of the Spider-Man? What's going to happen? Because of course he's going to return. But that is all I have. So don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.